righty. Should we talk about WrestleMania?
Yes.
Okay. So, this, of course, was night one. Only 4 hours. I don't know how they got by in such a quick amount of time. But night one of WrestleMania, that, as I mentioned, I had to watch on the Peacock, because it's not big enough for pay-per-view anymore. But I'm telling you, the stadium looked fantastic. And boy, howdy. Go back and look at the entranceway of WrestleMania 10 in Madison Square Garden and look at that stage and that whole elaborate setup. It looks like they made WrestleMania 10 look like a goddamn Smoky Mountain show at the Clinch Valley High School gym.
Yeah, but WrestleMania 10, there was no overhead for that entrance.
Well, exactly.
There was $0.
There was nothing over our heads. They could throw anything they wanted right down on top of it. Yes, it was a curtain and a fucking rope. And boy, how the budget has increased. But anyway, they opened up with Cena and Austin Theory for the U.S. title. And I think that was probably the best decision because the people, right off the bat, they're seeing one of the major stars. They want to see John Cena. At the same time, he's able to be in as advantageous a spot as possible to get the maximum response because they haven't seen anything yet. Because John's, he's coming there to do business for him, to get a guy like Austin Theory over to do business for WrestleMania, but at the same time, he can't be going out there and taking fucking flips through tables and shit because he's a goddamn movie star. So they had a match, and it was good that they were able to have a match before people had seen a bunch of other chaos. And when John comes out on stage with the Make-A-Wish kids, I mean, how could you not like that? He's literally done over 600 of them, the most Make-A-Wishes ever from anybody.
He's the ultimate babyface.
Yeah, I mean, and he generally, he does that. He wants to do that. You could do some for publicity or whatever, but to do 600, you're doing something on purpose. And, I think it was perfect Theory and Cena because if this was the much vaunted OVW class of 2002, Austin Theory would be the John Cena. Think about it. He would, of anybody currently in the WWE who kind of parallels, he's in great physical condition. He's a natural in the ring. He's more natural as a worker than John. He's not as natural as natural at speaking as John was, but they're close to the same age as John was when he was here in Louisville, as Theory is now. And if I had Theory in OVW, he would be my OVW champion. As a heel, he'd be my top guy. So there's kind of a parallel, and it was interesting in seeing a guy come along that, 20 years later is kind of in the same spot and about to go probably in the same direction. And I like the way that they worked this because they just needed enough of John to do a couple of things at the start, and then Theory cuts him off so he can fight from underneath because it's about the Theory. And John sells well and fires up from underneath well, but Theory stayed in control, and he was taking his time. He wasn't rushing. He was working the people. He wasn't going 100 miles an hour. And that, I think, registered. And he did the biting thing. To take over on John, he bit Cena's ear and then got on him. And then later on, when Cena got him in the STF, he bit his hand to get out of it. Because he's being a heel. And every once in a while...
Or an AEW agent.
Well, there you go. But, so Austin Steele. So anyway, John would get a hope spot, but then he'd get shut back down. But, of course, he was directing the traffic in this. And that's the one thing about John. He's not a ventriloquist, is he? When he calls something,
He's always been bad about that.
Yeah, if the other guy doesn't hear it, the people in the front row can fill him in. Anyway, finally, John makes the big comeback. Goes for what'd they rename the FU, the attitude adjustment, but they bump the referee. Cena gets the STF. Theory is tapping, but there's no referee. John gets up, see where the referee's at. Goes back to Theory. Theory hits the fucking nut shot. Boom. And then picks him up and hits his finish. A-Town down. 1, 2, 3. Theory beats Cena. And at least it's good to know that they agreed with us that that's the thing they should do, because that was pretty much the thing they needed to do. And I didn't think that John would come back just to beat this guy. And also after that promo. See, remember, now the promo makes more sense, where he just fucking tore him up one side and down the other. And I said, Jesus Christ. After that, Theory better win. Well, he was going to, and now we know that. So not a good opener and a big step for Austin Theory.
Good opener. Nice entrance for Cena. It actually really was nice to see those kids and how happy they were on that stage and how much time he gave to them.
Can you imagine being that age and whatever they've gone through, and then being out there with your favorite wrestling star in that biggest stadium with 80,000, well, not 80, with 60-something thousand declared as 80,000 people watching you? That had to be great.
Cena naturally looked older than he has, and a lot of people have been focusing on the bald spot. He didn't have a tan, but obviously he wasn't coming back to work a full-time thing or even a part-time thing. It was just to set up this match and have this match, and he's put over Austin Theory. So I guess the big question is, will Cena ever wrestle again? Because a lot of people seem to think that his 5-knuckle shuffle was the last time we will ever see that.
Oh, fuck.
And then where do we go now with Theory?
No, John Cena is not going to not ever wrestle again. It's not a regular thing, but how old is he now? Is he past 45?
John Cena is 45 years old.
Okay, he's going to wrestle again for several $1 million someplace. But he's still an attraction because it's not often and it's not done to death. I'm glad you mentioned that. He could have done a spray on tan. That wouldn't have taken up a lot of time, but it may have helped him a little bit. But otherwise than that, he stays in good shape, and he got the point across here. And then we had our showcase tag team match, the Street Sweepers and the Vikings and Otis and Shush and Brown Strongman and Ricochet. And that was a good time for me to go take a shit. What happened?
A fun, chaotic 4-way match with lots of wackiness, and eventually Braun Strowman was doing his choo-choo train around the ring, and Dawkins cut him off with a beautiful tackle. And then there was a few high spots, and the Street Profits came away with a big victory that it appeared was in the hands of Ricochet, and Braun Strowman ricocheted a shooting star press from the ring to the floor. That was very impressive before he lost.
Anyway, next, Seth Franklin Rollins and Logan Paul. And we mentioned that we didn't want to hear any of the interviews, but we did want to see the match. And it came out exactly as we thought. We did want to see the match, but we didn't want to hear the interviews. Except the entrances. Seth got the orchestra, right? And Logan Paul, the big blue drink bottle.
Did he get the orchestra or just a conductor?
Well, I don't know. I was skipping it. There was no on-screen fast forward, and I was trying to get to the fucking match. So I saw a conductor.
Yeah, it was a conductor conducting the fans and singing his music.
Oh, okay. Well, that's even worse. But that's what I saw. I saw a conductor of an orchestra and a big blue drink bottle for the entrances. So I got straight to the fucking bell. You know, they don't really need conducting. They pretty much know how to sing Seth's song. It's oh, right? I don't know. Anyway, what a fucking match. Logan Paul he's not completely smooth, but he's so athletic he makes up for it. And I say not smooth because he's green. Well, he doesn't have instant automatic muscle memory of when you get shot off exactly how to hit the ropes or drop down to the smooth step or whatever, but he's so athletic that he makes up for it. What is this? 3 matches or 4 matches in front of people now?
Oh, at least 4, I would say.
But still, as a former talent scout, if this guy was not a famous person, if he was just a schlub out there at a wrestling school that had been trained even by, really good veterans, but had only had 3 or 4 matches in front of people, and this was a tryout match, I would go to Vince and rave about him. He's got a great heel attitude and facials, and he understands, because I guess he's a fan, and he understands what this shit's supposed to look like. Having said that, Seth was the traffic cop here. He was calling the whole thing. He was keeping, and if you have a critical eye, it was not always easy to keep Logan Paul moving in the right direction or in the right placement, but he did it. But yeah, Logan Paul is a natural at this, and he's aggressive. Did you see the leaping moonsault from the mat to the top rope in one leap, and then without pausing a leap off? I mean, that's just balance and athleticism. And of course, he missed that on purpose so that Seth could make a big comeback and throw him over the top rope and hit the 3 big dive tackles and stomp remember Logan Paul has a titanium screw in his hand for that knockout punch. So Seth stomped the hand on the stairs, hit the curb stomp. And then my favorite exchange, they went through a series of cradle covers, and then they both popped up, and Logan Paul hit one of the sweetest fucking knockout punches on Seth I've ever seen. Sold his hand. Seth dropped like a fucking stone. And then it would cover and 2 count because it took a second for Logan Paul to sell his hand first. And that got a big pop. But what a fucking punch. And what a sell. That's one for the highlight reel. So then they did a couple of things, but then the blue bottle at ringside. What was it, an energy drink that Logan Paul has a piece of or something?
That's, I believe, what they said, yes.
So the blue bottle, as Seth is about to put him away, pulls Logan Paul out on the floor and reveals his face, and it is some friend of Logan Paul's named KSI. Pulled Logan Paul out to the floor. They get on the floor. Logan posts Seth. They clear off the announcer's desk. The bottle has now got his cell phone filming Seth on the announce desk. Is this no DQ? Are blue drink bottles allowed to just help in the match at any point, whether it's a no DQ or not?
I don't remember it being no DQ, so I don't know.
So the bottles are immune from referees' rulings. But anyway, the idea is Logan Paul is going to do a splash off the top rope onto Seth on the announce desk, and the blue bottle is going to film it with the camera. But at the last second, Seth pulls the blue bottle onto the desk, and Logan Paul splashes the blue bottle through the desk, which was a hell of a fucking splash and timed perfectly. And then Seth throws him back in the ring and hits the pedigree and gets a 2 count. And that's, I was like, what the fuck? They're still going? So they continue. And Logan Paul hits a go to sleep at a frog splash and a 2 count. And now Seth is selling. But Logan Paul goes for the coast to coast. But Seth pops up and hits a super kick. And then a curb stomp. 1, 2, 3. I don't know why they did the last 3 things. After the splash off the top, rolls him in, hits a pedigree. Seth is winning anyway. Why wasn't that it? They really needed another super kick and a curb stomp and to lose the momentum they had off of that awesome spot. So, except for the bottle being involved and the visual of that and not making the pedigree the finish, I thought this was great. But They could have had the fucking friend do the same thing, but if being dressed as a blue energy drink bottle just made the whole thing look like, a fucking cartoon, like it normally does whenever the New Day is out or Shoosh Boy or the rest of the underneath talent. This was a top match. I don't think they need to be silly. Speaking of being good at it and getting attention, neither one of those things happened next. Now, it was the 6-girl tag, Trish and Lita and Becky against Bayley and Kai and Sky. Reminds me of Bruiser and Crusher and Andre the Giant against fucking Mulkey Brothers and Barry Horowitz. I had things to do at this point in time. What did I miss?
I didn't watch this match. There was no way I was going to watch this match. No, I don't care.
I mean, again, the star power just is so lopsided here.
Lita's not the greatest in the ring right now. Trish hasn't been in the ring in a long time. It's Becky and Bayley and her group, and that doesn't work for me. I mean, it's weird. In one company, you have a completely substandard women's division with one or two exceptions. And here, you have an okay women's division, and then you have a lot of stuff I don't care about, and then you have the best that there's ever been, in some cases. But I didn't care about this match, and I don't know why anyone would.
Well, we'll get to the best there's ever been in the female division here in a minute. Dominic versus Rey, the Battle of the Mysterios. And okay, I've got to admit it. Whoever came up with the idea for Dominic's entrance, it was great. They deserve a raise. They bring him out in a prison van with guards. He gets out of the thing. He's in handcuffs. They walk him to the ring and uncuff him at ringside. Good old ex-con Dom. I mean, that was beautiful. And the thing about Dominic is he's not an ass kicker. He's not, a heel that needs to go on a long winning streak because he gets such he's a chicken shit heel that gets such heat being a chicken shit and being an asshole and whatever the case that, you can do a variety of things with him. And of everybody else this wasn't my favorite match on the show, but of everybody on the fucking show, top to bottom, Dominic has not just improved, but made leaps and bounds over the last, 2 years?
Just the last year. Just look at the last year. Last year I think he was still teaming with his dad at WrestleMania. And in 1 year, he's become one of my favorite, I'll use the word performer because it's really less about his in-ring stuff than anything else. One of my favorite people in the business. Like his stuff, the promos the last few weeks, the thing with his mom and his sister, the idea that everyone knows he got arrested for that little incident in his house and he was out right away and he acts like he was in prison. I mean, this has all been working really, really well.
Well, and you said, performer, but, and remember we were talking about a year ago or a year and a half ago, well, he looks so young and it just doesn't, there was no need to have the babyface, cheery Dominic with Rey Mysterio. He was just a cheesy kid. But this transformation, he's great. And in the ring, I wrote at the start, we're going to see how good Dominic is here because he's going to be as good as he can be against his father. And, with a veteran like Rey, knowing what to do and how to do it, and it being his son and wanting him to get over, and Dom working as hard as he could. This was Dominic was with him on every step and some complicated shit. And he was right there. I love that Rey came out in the lowrider with Eddie's music. Of course, it was driven by Snoop Dogg. We'll see more of him later on. And the father versus son match with all of this horrible animosity and heartbreak was sponsored by Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And it's fine they want to sponsor a match, but now the lighted boards on the side of the ring and the barricade, it's all lit up cinnamon. It looked like a New Day match with all the fucking Cheerios or whatever. But anyway, I think the Dominic versus Hook, whose future is brighter contest has been decided decisively.
Should have had Conan come out in the car with Snoop Dogg and Ray after that speech the night before.
You know what? That would have been, well, they probably figure we don't, Conan does not under contract to us. We're not going to put him out there for WrestleMania.
No, I know. I can see the reason why, but I don't know. It felt like after the night before, they should have done that.
Yeah. But anyway, so Ray shined a little bit at the start, and he always constructs his matches to where they can take over quick his opponents and he can sell from underneath because he's a smaller guy. But he did some good shit at the start and then took his belt off and whipped Dominic with it. I thought they were going to do your finish. What a pop it got. He didn't tap out on it, though.
You had to do it, though. You had to do a spanking spot.
Yeah.
You had to.
But then Dominic goes to the floor, and there's sister and mom, and he grabs the sister's drink and throws it in her face, and she starts to climb over the railing, and Ray comes and holds her back, and Dominic cuts him off. So what a great heat spot again. And Dominic did not get nervous and did not let the stadium and WrestleMania and everything else get the better of him. He was still working people. He was making faces. He wasn't rushing. You know, he did everything that you could have asked him to do. And finally, he goes back to his mother and taunting her, and she smacks him. And that starts Ray making a comeback. And he's kicking Dominic's ass, but here comes Damian Priest and Finn Balor to ringside. There's going to be shenanigans. And did you see I don't even know if it has a name, but the flipping face buster to the bottom buckle that Dominic gave to Ray?
Yeah, I saw the referee went right over to Ray to make sure he was okay. He saw it too.
Yeah. Well, and Ray took it. He ran, flipped upside down into Dominic, and Dominic just goes backwards, and Ray took it the rest of the way over, but holy shit, that looked good. And then Ray foiled the Three Amigos, stopped him and hit a 619, but Priest interfered. And that's when the Lucha Suits came out and attacked Priest and Balor, and they fought off. And then Dominic hit Ray with a 619 and a frog splash for a 2 count. And then Dominic goes over and takes the turnbuckle pad off. And as the referee comes over and says, "You can't do that," and he's putting the turnbuckle pad back on, Dominic goes over to where Priest has left his suit jacket laying on the corner of the ring and pulls a logging chain out. Why don't they use a good old dog choker chain like we always used to, that you could actually hide and you could hit somebody with wrapped around your fist and not kill your own self? They're always these 6-foot chains. But as he's got the chain, Bugs Bunny, he's back. He's been doing commentary at the announce desk. He comes up and grabs the chain and allows Ray to hit the 619 and then the frog splash 1, 2, 3. So lots of interference at the end, but the match couldn't have been better. And Dominic more than held up his part. I thought this was my second favorite match of the night. I liked Cena in theory for the result and the star power. This was very good. We haven't got to my favorite match yet. But so far, if night 2's better than night 1, we got something. We'll see what happens. What'd you think here?
I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. I was into the whole thing. I know you called him Bugs Bunny, but I didn't mind Bad Bunny being involved. If this is going to build a Dominic at Bad Bunny, that's interesting in terms of where they see Dominic. Hey, listen, I know people that were in that building. They said when they introduced Bad Bunny before this match, he was the most over guy on the show up to that point.
How?
Because he's a major music star that crosses genres right now. Suzanne and the kids love him. I've never listened to one of his songs. And he's a big star, so I don't have a big problem with him being involved. And him and Dominic, he's not a big guy, so him and Dominic could make some sense.
Or maybe some dollars if they do it right.
It's been said that Triple H thinks that Dominic has a big future there. Do you see it now? I mean, we didn't see it a year ago, but do you see it now?
Yes. Well, again, a year ago, as a smiling babyface kid tag along to Rey, there wasn't much there, and he didn't have a physique or a look that, one would expect or one would think was going to get people excited about liking him. But all of those weaknesses as a heel become strengths. Yes, he does have to cover that, lack of upper body up with a full body outfit, but he's supposed to be a Weasley kid and a chicken shit and all that stuff. So this works now. And the personality that he's found and brought out in himself is great. It's not a gimmick that's going to switch to, he's going to become a babyface and not have to change anything, but he can run run for a while as a heel like this.
You keep him with Priest? Because if you're going to have him as a chicken shit and need some kind of muscle.
Yeah, I think in the group. And, here's the problem is the thing that really made him look good was him and Mommy. But if Mommy's a stone cold babyface now, which she just about is after this next match.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It doesn't work. And it's better for Rhea, but it might not be as good for Dominic that, Mommy can't be there. And they can't switch Dominic babyface. So he needs to be in the Judgment Day, but the best part of the package was Dominic and Rhea together. I don't know, maybe Mommy can have a split personality. Who knows? Speaking of Mommy, holy mackerel. Okay, the best match, I will keep you in suspense no further. The best match of WrestleMania Night 1 was the girls' match. I'm not talking about the girls' tag team four-way fiasco. I'm talking about the actual girls' wrestling match that took place. Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley. This not only was several levels above any other women's match mostly in WWE or in AEW, this was above 80% of the fucking men's matches in any company. And they both look like wrestlers. They look like stars. They can work. They're believable. They got personality. Both of them are different, so you can easily tell them apart. They laid their shit in. It was a back and forth struggle. It was not smooth by design. They were working stiff and struggling to make a contest and a fight and show emotion. And for anybody who thinks I don't like women's wrestling, no, I don't like bad women's wrestling, which is what most of it is. But again, I say this was not only better than all of the other girls' matches, but most of the guys' matches. Because you had the combination of everything. There's no little fucking 5 foot tall, 98 pound made up Barbie doll twit. No fancy fucking gymnastics and round offs and tumbling. No girly punches. Both these girls, the ultimate compliment that was ever given in the wrestling business to any of the female performers, they work like guys. That's a positive. That's a plus. And that's what they did. And this match was incredible. And they took us on a ride. Some of those wicked German suplexes, and especially Rhea hit one where Charlotte went face first. And since the only thing in this match that didn't make sense was after Charlotte got planted face first, she was back up moments later on offense. Apparently, she was going for the full flip and didn't quite make it. And they didn't change and go with the flow there. But, I mean...
She skinned her nose.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised she didn't break it. They were each hitting their big moves. Charlotte hits the moonsault off the top to the floor. Rhea hits the riptide. Rhea flips her shit and gets a standing cloverleaf, and Charlotte gets the ropes. And the more this went on, you could also tell the fans were more and more solidly behind Rhea. The idea she would win. They wanted to see a title change. And it wasn't because Charlotte was not being a good babyface. It was because they wanted to see Rhea win, and they wanted to see a title change. And so when they got into the yay boo, the people were going crazy, but Rhea's punches were the yay and Charlotte's were the boo. And that's why I'm saying they've got to decide in the office there whether they keep Mommy and Dominic and Mommy and the Judgment Day, for that matter, together for an okay upper middle card type of group, or whether they realize that they may have the biggest female star that they've had in the past 20 years on their fucking hands now and concentrate on her.
And Charlotte needs to be a heel.
And well, here's the thing. I don't care if they switch Charlotte heel. They can do whatever they want. But the point is, the people have clearly shown in this instance, it's not that they're rioting against Charlotte being a babyface against anybody. It's that they picked Rhea here. And so and that's why I think Charlotte was sitting there when the match was over, smiling and looking up like, yeah, you got me, because they still want her to be a babyface. If they'd wanted her to switch heel, she'd have bitched and griped about it. But she kind of gave the I'm accepting this because she's earned my respect type of thing, so Charlotte can be a babyface against somebody else. But again, if they're smart, they won't rematch this on free television, and they won't rematch it at all right away, but they will build. I think SummerSlam's quick. Is it Survivor Series? Whatever the case, Royal Rumble. Now we need a rematch, and this time Rhea going in as champion and the clear babyface, and by then Charlotte may very well be a heel again, and now you got a brand new look, and do that fucking match again. And that would be a selling point for a pay-per-view, unlike 98% of all the other women's matches in the business. That rematch belongs on pay-per-view.
I'd make that one of the main events of SummerSlam. Ripley, Charlotte 3.
It's a little quick. May, June, July. It's 3 months.
It is July now. Yeah, I mean, I still think of it as the end of August. You're right about that.
It is in July this year, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm saying when I was a kid, it was the end of August.
Okay, it was August. Yeah, but still 3 months, 4 months. Let's milk it a little bit. But anyway, the match back and forth. And finally, the finish was they were fighting up on top, trying to get an advantage, and Rhea dropped Charlotte face first on the top of those big square posts with the LED lights and everything, and then sat up on top and muscled her into the riptide position, or that pump handle slam thing she does, and did that off the ropes, boom, right on the back of Charlotte's head, 1, 2, 3. And again, just, wow, that, if you didn't see so many frilly, silly, girly girls matches with these diminutive pixies that just muddle everything up and muddy the water, this is the kind of women's wrestling that people will pay to see. And that's why I'm saying you find your Ripley, you find your Charlotte, you find a Bianca and maybe a Becky with the personality. She doesn't have the size, but she's got the mouth. And you focus on a small handful of the best in the business and just feed them on television whenever they need to wrestle. Feed them miscellaneous girls that you can find anywhere. And then match up your stars on pay-per-view, and you've got women's wrestling people will pay to see. When it has to be half of the whole goddamn show constantly, then it doesn't do a match like this any service, because people like me go, goddamn, I'd like to see some fucking violence and brutality in my wrestling, not a bunch of girls cheerleaders. This was violent and brutal.
This was an excellent match. This was probably the greatest women's match to ever take place in North America. Rhea Ripley, you always say about MJF, a generational talent. Rhea Ripley's a generational talent.
Yeah.
Watch the way she sells, the way she does power moves.
Facial reactions.
What spot was it? The DDT she almost took on the top of her head, and she went over but she shot her body over. I mean, the impact of it. I don't even know how to describe it, as you could tell. But Rhea Ripley is so good. I think Charlotte's best served as a heel because I think fans are predisposed. They want to boo her.
Yeah.
You got to give them a reason to. A couple of years ago, our favorite match at WrestleMania was Charlotte and Rhea Ripley. This was worlds better
and
than that match.
That was the pandemic.
That was the pandemic,
right?
Yeah. No crowd.
And the reason why we liked that, as I recall, was because that was the only match on the card where they actually made having no people in the building work for them and worked snug, and you could hear the smack of the meat in the flesh when they were hitting each other, and they didn't go off kilter and try to have a ridiculous fight that looks goofy when there's nobody around. And in this case, it was a completely different match, much better. Obviously, not only because there were people and because they were given more time, but also because Rhea Ripley's 3 years better. But can't say enough good about this one, and I will watch them wrestle any fucking time.
And I can't wait again to see Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair because I think they're great together. But when I get so, not even mad, just frustrated with the AEW women's division, which at times is like Jamie Hayter and a bunch of people. And I wish Hayter was over here for all this. The problem is there's too many women, it seems like, in wrestling that decided, hey, I want to be wrestlers. And they go in the back, they put on their trunks, they pull it up so their ass is hanging out, and then they skip to the ring, and they just do little sequences or little things that have nothing to do with wrestling, and they have no wrestling instincts. They're just doing wrestling. I'm doing wrestling now. And then you see something like this, which is as good as it gets. And it's not like just this is WrestleMania, the biggest stage, big match, great opponent. Rhea Ripley's always great. Charlotte's really good. Sometimes she's not great, but she's really good. Bianca Belair is great, but then you see like that. That's why I always said AEW shouldn't have even had a women's division. They didn't have the people to staff it. You didn't have the people. Here they got the people, and the top people here, Rhea Ripley especially, is as good as it gets ever in North America.
And that's, another thing I've said is that it drags down the overall average quality of your show when you specifically go out there to, as the WWE often does, Tony is not that bad because he doesn't have enough of them, but when you're trying to make half the men's matches and half the card women's matches, there are a lot better male talents and more of them in the wrestling business than there are female talents. So if you're going for the absolute best talent regardless of gender, then it'd probably be about 85-15. But when you try to make it 50-50, then you've left off 35% of the fucking guys that would be better than the 35% of the girls you brought in. And then you've diluted your whole fucking show. So it doesn't have to all be equal. Female wrestling should still be an attraction, something different from the normal fare. Then it would stand out more, and then you could concentrate on the people that could really do it rather than trying to fill the fucking shoes once you brought them all home from the shoe store. You don't need that many to begin with.
Yeah, and I like classic All Japan women's wrestling. All those women went through heavy training to get to where they were. It wasn't just like anyone became a wrestler. You had to really go through the system, go through the ringer, and prove it.
Oh, good. It wouldn't even be legal to do in this country to train women or anybody the way they trained those women back then. It'd be some kind of lawsuit. So anyway, speaking of a lawsuit, can we sue Miz for impersonating a wrestler again? He wasn't advertised to wrestle, but right before the main event, I guess maybe as a little, segue to get the people calmed down from the girls' match, there was Miz and Snoop Diggity Dogg in the ring. And I wasn't going to watch this, but then I see Pat McAfee coming out. And Pat McAfee gets in the ring and briefly wants to fight Miz, and Miz can't fight because he's the host. He's not dressed, and Pat gets tiny balls going amongst the crowd. And then McAfee said, I like Pat McAfee. He's got all kinds of personality, and we love the promos and etc. We want to see more of him. To be quite honest, we thought his work was fantastic for a novice until we saw Logan Paul, and now I think Logan Paul's a little bit better than Pat McAfee on the physical. Pat still got the golden voice, but
the worst wardrobe.
Worst wardrobe. And so McAfee asked, isn't there somebody around here that can make a match between me and Miz official? And Snoop Dogg standing there. He said, I can do that. Yeah, make the match. And so now Snoop Dogg is making matches. And McAfee gets on Miz, and they did some stunts, and he hit Miz with his punt, kick, 1, 2, 3. And some friend of McAfee's in colored clown shorts was involved. I think he was a football player. I was trying to get to the main event.
He was a football player. They introduced him earlier.
Good. Well, at least everybody knew who he was by then.
Hey, look, they needed to do something to break up the women's match and the tag match. Not saying this needed to be it, but they had to do something.
Couldn't they have run in a dancing bear or something? All right, so then I thought it was going to be the main event, but instead we got a rap performance by, what was this guy's name? Little Uzi Burns?
I forget what his name was.
Little Uzi Burns, who may be the cousin of Lil Al Vavasour. We're not sure. It's spelled the same way, L-I-L. It was abysmal and quickly skipped. He was rapping. We wrapped that up. And then it was time for our main event of night one. And again, I got to be honest with you, they should have made Rhea and Charlotte main event. And I thought tag title match, lights out match. After this, I think they should have just reversed the order, because it was a happy ending either way. You didn't want me to talk about happy endings anymore.
I don't think the audience would have reacted the way they did to the Rhea Ripley match if that was on after this. Because of the way things have been built up, you couldn't have something after the big pop of Sammy and Owens getting their win.
Yeah, true. It was such a much better match. I'm not even going to knock Sammy and Owens here. You just knew that the French Canadians were going to pull something out, some death-defying stunt or whatever. I want to like the Usos. I love this story so much. The Usos, to me, I don't see great tag team. There's nothing wrong with them, but I don't see great tag team. I don't see Midnight Express. I don't see Tully and Arn. I don't see Rock and Roll Express. I don't see Bulldogs. I don't see Heart Foundation. Maybe it's part of that they've been presented, as I said before in the program, as Roman's flunkies in a lot of cases, in a lot of confrontations. And part of it is that they have the modern style of working, but would you say either Uso is really a really sharp, accomplished, I'm not talking technical wrestler in terms of mat wrestling, I'm talking about the execution of all their shit is smooth and crisp?
Not necessarily, and I think the Bloodline storyline has been great for them, and they've been excellent in it. They've had some really good matches, but there aren't a lot of Uso matches I've been a big fan of. I was never a big fan of their in-ring stuff as much as I've loved everything else with them recently.
They ain't FTR in the ring. But unfortunately for FTR, they were in the main event at WrestleMania, whereas FTR is in the main event over at fucking Cocaine Tony's place. Anyway, they started the match. They quickly cut Sammy off and started getting heat on him because, again, that's what his best quality in the ring has always been to me, even back in the El Generico days, as a babyface selling. That's where and fighting back. That's where he shines. And the drunk leg, stagger walk, dish rag body, he's fucking great. And they started slow because after all the fans had seen, they needed to keep a place to go at the end. So they put this together well early on. You know, again, they gave Kevin a tag so he could make a comeback. The first comeback he made was on the floor, where he just splash him on the floor and then get back in the ring. And It's hard to make a comeback on the floor that earlier in the match, but he wanted to save his big comeback for in the ring. We saw that later on. So anyway, then they cut Kevin off because they're going to get some heat on Kevin. And there were a ton of super kicks and top rope splashes in this match, to be honest, a lot of them. And it went back and forth. And again, they cut Sammy off again and worked him over in multiple super kicks. And this was the point where they started having a more modern match. And some of the things took me out of it. Like they did the thing where while they're 2-on-1 against Sammy, Owens is on the floor somewhere out of sight forever. What the fuck? I couldn't even remember what had happened to him last. I was like, is he dead? People would come back from fucking multiple sclerosis quicker than, but they have to wait for their spot. That's a modern match. I can't even remember a match in the territory days where the fucking partner just goes down to the floor and lays there for minutes at a time. They're either taken out or they get, it distracts me because I keep looking around for fucking dipshit. Where is he? Where is he? Anyway, as soon as the Usos go for the 1D, that's where Owens appears fresh as a daisy and foils it suddenly. So they double choke slam him through the desk. He's gone again. Or at least he's got a reason to be gone then. And then they hit the 1D on Sammy and get a 2 count, but he kicks out. And they beat up Sammy some more, and finally Owens struggles to the apron again. Hot tag. Now he makes his big comeback. And again, a lot of false finishes with a lot of super kicks. The people are up. Everybody's doing super kicks. They like them. And finally, the Usos both come off the top on Owens. Cover, 1-2 count. Big pop for the kick out. And then everything comes to a halt again. And then one of the Usos and Kevin get in the corner and have a little conversation where they remember what's going on, and then more super kicks. And I guess that's what I'm saying is that they have to do such intricate, convoluted, complicated shit over and over and over in the modern style matches, and or eliminating one or more of the participants for long lengths of time, that it takes me out of it because I know the people are loving the chaos, but I'm sorry, I just naturally follow a match for does it make sense, because that was the most important thing back when you had to actually draw money on your own. Anyway, so Sammy then throws Jimmy over the desk and Owens hits the fisherman suplex off the top rope onto the other Uso and tags Sammy, and that's a big pop. And Sammy gives Jay the big haluva kick, and again, and a third one. Cover 1, 2, 3. And big celebration because they did. And you could tell they were both broken up and emotional because there they are. Fat ass and Forrest Gump sitting there in the ring in front of 75,000 people at a stadium just main eventing WrestleMania. So they were legitimately touched. And you could tell. So the people, that was the right result. It was a good match. People loved it. Little modern for my taste in spots where they just take the liberties. But overall, exactly what they needed to do. Don't you think?
It's the result that I thought it had to be, going into what I think has to happen tonight as we are recording, and I think we have to go into Raw with the Bloodline having lost all their championships. And then we see what happens with Roman and the rest of the family. Do they abandon him or does he turn on them? But a good first night of WrestleMania. This match, I think, had to be the main event. And I think that they gave the people what they wanted. It took, for me, a little bit to get into it because the Ripley-Charlotte match is an all-timer. That match was incredible. And it's like following Steamboat and Savage. How do you follow a match like that? By the end of this, they got people really into it. Too many super kicks for me. If you squinted, this is like what Owens and Zayn versus the Young Bucks could have been. But I thought it was a good match.
but at least the Usos are grown adult men.
That's true.
That does help.
That's true. But I thought it was a good match, and I thought the last few minutes were really great just because the fans were really into it. And the haluva kick Whenever I've read it in print, I thought it was the hell of a kick.
Well, I think that's part of the rib. It's spelled like that, but I guess El Generico couldn't cuss because he was involved with the orphanage in Mexico.
I think the reason I don't like it is just it sounds like something Excalibur would say, the helluva kick. So I just don't want to say it. But by the time he hit the third one and Jey Uso's just standing there, his head is like, slouched down. It was a great moment. And it ends WrestleMania Night 1 on the right note. In the old school way, the traditional way, I guess, WWE used to like to send people home happy. They did so here this night.
Well, and sometimes that's what you need to do. And I'll tell you what, I made a big mistake in Smoky Mountain Wrestling in my booking when we had built remember the 3-team 9-man street fight, Bobby Eaton and Tom Pritchard and Stan Lane, the Heavenly Bodies against Robert Fuller, Jimmy Golden, and Dutch Mantell, the Stud Stable against the Rock and Roll Express and Arn Anderson. And all three teams hated each other. And we had that big 3-way street fight at the Bluegrass Brawl. But 2 weeks later in Knoxville and Johnson City, we were doing a 3-way tag match for the belts. And I thought, well, goddamn, if the baby faces win this street fight, then the heat's going to be off the heels going into Knoxville and Johnson City. So I had the Bodies fuck the Rock and Roll and then come back to and it just in the building, it was a great match, but the finish would have been an all-time pop. And instead the heels winning deflated the people. I should have given them the fucking babyface win and then done something either heat after or even just let it go with that and done something else for television before the next big shows. But I did. Sometimes you have to give the people what they expect to see and what they'd like to see. You can't give it all to them all the time, or then they get placated because they always get what they want. And then if they weren't mad at the heels and they're not upset about anything, there was no reason to fucking go. You're not going to go buy a ticket to see the fucking babyface lose. That'd be insane. So sometimes you have to give the people what they expect, even if it's expected, or they lose faith in whether they're going to see it the next time they want to pay to see it or not.
So to put a bow on night 1, looking at the results, would you say that the results to the matches are exactly what they should have been? Other than the matches you didn't pay attention to, like the...
Well, yeah, and that nobody would give a shit either way. Yeah, the 4 teams or whatever. No, yes, everything we were talking about, unless this is going to be an ongoing thing where it's going to continue with Cena and Theory. Theory needed to win, and he did. Rey beat Dominic, which he should have, but at the same time, that doesn't hurt Dominic's heat because he's that type of heel that he can lose and keep it. Rhea definitely needed to win the belt from Charlotte. That propelled her a step up. And as we've mentioned, if not even... I didn't know whether they ought to take all the belts at one time, but obviously this is going to be part of the story that they're going to be telling. So, but you couldn't fucking beat Sammy and Kevin, especially on last in this particular instance, because that would have pissed people off. So every finish was what it should have been.
I can't even imagine what it would have felt like if they had ended this show with the Usos winning.
Oh, no. I can't even imagine that was in serious discussion. So,
yeah,
ever.